There's a shakeup at the top of PepsiCo. CEO Indra Nooyi says she will step aside after 12 years of leading the company. Nooyi was one of only 25 female CEOs leading companies in the S&P 500. Joining us now to discuss is Maria Brennan, President and CEO of Women in Cable Telecommunications. Maureen Sharry is author of Opening Belle and former managing director at Bear Stearns. Ladies and gentlemen, good to have you here. Maureen, I'm the girl on the set, so I got to do this whole segment about why there aren't more women doing these things. Tell me, why do you think that is? What do you make about the fact that we've lost a woman CEO, one of the biggest companies in America, and are we going to see any improvement in the numbers?
Is that for me?
I'm optimistic.
That's for Maureen.
I'm optimistic. Yes, for me. Thank you. Okay, so I am optimistic about a change in the numbers, and I know the trend is down. I know the numbers are abysmal. There are a flurry of emails today. I believe we're down to something like 4% of the S&P 500 holding a CEO position. That said, I think we've never had the consumer speak before. And what has changed? Me Too has changed. People have become more activists. They've participated in Women's March, both men and women. And I think that they are going to see the association with their wallets to the companies that they spend their money at. And so I am optimistic that you will see the change maybe not come from within, but from the consumer itself.
Maria, do you agree to that extent? Do you think enough consumers are actually aware of the statistics of certain companies and what their leadership is, whether at the executive level or the board level? And is it really filtering into how they pick what goods to buy or sell?
Well, I do agree with Maureen to some extent. I think we are seeing sort of an unprecedented tide of awareness. The sorts of things that some of the organizations that we work with have recognized for a long time. You know, there's wonderful data and empirical to boot that says when you have gender diversity, and that includes in the CEO ranks, you see companies in general perform better. I also think a little bit of what is in play here, we all know about the glass ceiling, and I think the University in Exeter coined the phrase the glass cliff. And sometimes what you see women being put in positions to be change agents as CEOs of organizations that are already suffering. And if they don't have a measure of success, instead of it being more about the company that they were inheriting and the inherent problems that came with it, oftentimes we see it reported as it having to do with the gender, which of course is a double standard that I think plays into it as well.
Maureen, when you look at the degrees that women are getting versus men, women tend to, the vast majority of advanced degrees are going to topics related to education. They're not getting degrees in science. A lot of them aren't getting degrees in management. There's a problem with the pipeline, isn't there? Just beyond this whole concern about maybe there's bias, et cetera.
So the pipeline that I would look at to make it more defined is the MBA pipeline, which is over 40% female. So you look at that 40% number and you break it down to 4% later on, and that is what seems almost statistically impossible. And so that's why I feel like there is a big pipeline coming. I feel like these women are more empowered than ever. I think we've all learned things from women like Indra, who sort of came to the table with just her raw talent and brains and never played any kind of card of being, female or a woman of color or anything like that. And I think we've all taken a lesson there. Younger women have. And so, again, I'm optimistic.
Maria, what's your take in terms of the industries that are performing best or worse at this particular initiative of empowering more women to top roles?
Well, I think when you look at the more successful companies and those that have resources at their disposal, we're starting to see certainly some really strong players in that regard. I think, much to the point of what Maureen just said, a lot of this really, while we measure women and people of color and things of that nature, I'd like to see us really get to a point where everybody is measured in terms of the standard, and it becomes just so natural for things to be, look, when you have 50% of the population, you would expect that more than 4-point-something% of the women running Fortune 500 companies, that you would expect that number to go higher. Likewise, when you look at the performance of the Fortune 1000 companies and how the limited but number of female CEOs perform, their performance is impeccable. So to some extent, it's almost like an education campaign. You know, on the one hand, you hear about some of the failings of female CEOs, but you don't necessarily hear an equal proportion of the successes like we've seen at Pepsi and some other companies.